Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Careers Talk. My name is Swan Sharma. I'm an agile consultant based in Netherlands, and at Careers Talk we invite industry experts from around the world to share their real life experience with us. So today we are going to discuss project manager interview questions shared by our awesome group members who have participated in actual interviews at IBM, Accenture and Infosys. So all these questions are both technical and situational, so don't miss out any of them. And promotion. If you want to be part of our WhatsApp communities for both job opportunities and interview discussions, please join our YouTube Gold membership and become a part of our unique community. And with this, with all these questions today, we are glad to have Arijeet Bose with us, who has over 2.5 decades of experience in IT industry, and throughout his vast careers, he has worked in regions like USA and the UK, and he's currently working as a project management consultant and has previously worked at companies like IBM, EY, Wipro, Cognizant, and many more. So before we start, a small request. If you find this session helpful, which I'm sure you will, please smash that like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out future sessions from Career Talk. With all this, thank you, and let's get started. So hello Arjit, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Arjit, over to you.
Thanks, Sunand, and it's a pleasure to be back on the Career Stock channel, and I look forward to engaging discussion today.
Wonderful. So shall we start?
Sure, let's go ahead.
Okay. So the very first question is, how do you ensure the right balance between the project margin and resource utilization whenever you are going to assign a lot of different resources?
I ensure the right balance by doing detailed budget planning and regularly and meticulously tracking the actuals against the forecasts. Number one, we first look at the project's profit goals, what kind of skills are needed, and typically this is done during feasibility studies when a business case is actually detailed out. A high-level technology roadmap is also determined at this time. Taking an example from one of my previous engagements, where I worked as a product management consultant for a client in the oil and gas sector, I achieved about 10% of savings, primarily by number one, optimizing of resources in terms of their engagement, realigning talent, moving resources between location, and also consolidating the roadmaps. When I say roadmap, I'm talking about the product roadmap, the journey of the product, and what it would deliver at various points in time. So putting the three together helped me achieve about 10% in savings, thereby meeting the margin goals that is set at the portfolio level. Now, how do we do this typically? Sometimes, say, during a particular phase, I might need a specialized resource. Say, for example, I need a UX designer that is based in your country, say the Netherlands, and I need them only for critical initial UI aspects. Now, once that scope for UI UX has been laid out, I would then switch to a skilled resource, perhaps in India, and then I would use that opportunity to scale up as needed. So to summarize, we're considering the skills, the location, and the specific time period for which they're needed. I can track the utilization and the associated costs much more closely.
Wonderful.
So in summary, to attain I would say the best balance between cost and utilization, evaluation and assigning of team members to tasks that fit their expertise is important. And this helps avoid any wasted time, and eventually it delivers greater value for the project. I also ensure that team members always go through learning and training. They are trained in different or in parallel areas on various tasks. Say, for example, a Pega developer or a subject matter expert in a particular area in AI. They would also have the required expertise in Agile when it comes to certain frameworks and methodologies that we use. In PMI, there's a term called T-shaped personalities. In other words, people who have the depth of knowledge and also the breadth of knowledge. And it is very common in adaptive and agile environments. So having T-shaped individuals on your project would ensure optimal resource utilization and engagement over the long run. So that's what I would say about this particular question. Over to you, Sumit.
Wonderful, Ajit. Yeah, thank you for that precise, crisp answer. Let's move on to our next question. Next question is, so as a project manager, how you are going to manage or how you are going to handle unutilized team members during a project?
Yeah, unutilized or underutilized team members are always a problem. And this was more of an issue back in the day when we had a lot more of predictive or what we used to call waterfall projects, where typically people are waiting at a particular end of a phase or waiting for certain activities to complete before going on to the next one. And that was a common pitfall, and that really added to the cost of the project. Now, moving from one phase to another could cause delays, and sometimes, this would, when I remember from my experience, it could add significant issues at a management level as well. But today, coming to projects today, we have more of an adaptive or an agile model, or I would say hybrid model that takes the best of both the predictive and also the adaptive methods, and which really leaves little room for idle time. We have our Scrum iteration framework, and that ensures that the flow of requirements is continuous, and the backlogs are prioritized, reducing the risk or chances of idle time, right? And then, of course, in the process of this agile environment, we develop a self-organizing team, and definitely they lead and they would know what is the best way to ensure that they stay utilized while enhancing or adding on to the project scope. But of course, having said that, we still see chances of temporary underutilization, and it could happen due to stalling of a project or an issue that is a bit slow to resolve, and it could be quite really external to the project or the program environment. And during this time, I normally have a system wherein we accommodate for some training or developing relevant skills, and sometimes that would involve actual learning acquisition, a certain amount of job shadowing, or assisting members on some similar skill initiatives. I think this is important because it also helps you develop a growth mindset. But again, just to summarize, leading digital initiatives for the last 5 to 6 years or so, I have always seen resource utilization consistently above 90%. So that's always been a good experience. Over to you,
Wonderful.
Sumit.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Abhijit, for that. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So the next question is, what methods or uh, tool do you use to track the utilization and the margin based on the statement of work, SOW?
Yeah, so we have various project management software and financial tool to track utilization and profit. In PMI terminology, we call it the PMIS, or the Project Management Information Systems. And we have tools like, of course, MS Project and Azure DevOps in particular that helps track individual and team utilization. Because when it comes to Agile, we look at the engagement and overall success from a team perspective. And Azure DevOps as a tool specifically tracks team utilization over one or more iteration, right? And this data will helps in planning out the scope for the subsequent iterations. So if a team performs at a particular velocity, that becomes like a benchmark or a means by which we can track the rest of the iterations leading on to the major release. So again, resourcing these budget management tools as well, they help me see how much time individuals and teams spend on tasks compared to what was planned. And I also regularly review the financial reports, and as part of the budget management process, track the actual spending with the budgets laid out in the SOW. And just to add on to this point, we always know that, of course, while costs are important, we live in an agile world today and we are always trying to adapt. Projects always try to adapt with constant and emerging changes. And the Agile Manifesto also emphasizes customer collaboration and value delivery over contract negotiation. Typically, if the utilization is high, say over 100%, but the client does not acknowledge the scope or deliver the value or the value that's delivered, then definitely there's a problem. On the other hand, if early and acceptable completion shows a high performing team that can actually take on more work, right? So for fixed price projects, margin is important. However, the value derived from deploying the product or the business increment to the market is also crucial. And somewhere we have to have a good balance between the two, right? So that's my perspective on this question.
Wonderful, Ansit. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Uh, so how you are going to manage being the single point of contact for a client across multiple different technologies?
Yeah. So yes, this is a very common experience for program managers in particular who lead cross-functional teams that come with diverse technical and domain expertise. And in my experience, when I'm the main contact for a client with many technologies, uh, clear and transparent communication is of utmost importance. I understand the client's overall business goals and how they perceive value. And my job, again, is always to try to take the technical information in a way and talk that it makes sense for the business. I ensure as much as possible in a simple language that the business in particular, they understand how the different technologies connect and then how the progress is being made. See, again, while the technical aspects I appreciate are important, the client is more interested in the value delivery. And this is where the communication changes a little bit. How you communicate with, say, for example, a product owner versus how you communicate the technology to an internal IT stakeholder. For an internal IT stakeholders, my experience has been that it's crucial how the various technologies are used and coordinated. That's what they want to know about. If I take my last example in IBM Consulting, I manage the product management and digital transformation for this client in the oil and gas sector, which had multiple technologies and skill sets. So sometimes the client, often the product owner, would ask about resource needs for a specific technology, say, for example, Pega. Now, they might also ask why Pega was chosen over another tool like Power BI, especially when it's a data reporting application. So now, in such cases, I always bring in the architect and any technical expert that would add more value and that would elaborate a little bit more on the technology in a manner that a product owner who is more like an interface between business and IT understand this better. Right? So they can, and then in simpler terms, we can talk about volume, scalability, performance, integration, and so many other aspects where which helped us decide why we have chosen a particular technology over the other. So that's how it is, and it's important, a very important aspect of leading a cross-functional team and reporting the benefits to the client.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, so the next question is, I think this is pretty common question and this keep on coming. So the question is how you are going to communicate the technical challenges or the technical risks to the non-technical stakeholders.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very common aspect and experience that we as project and program managers face a lot in today's diverse environments. And to explain technical risk to people without technical backgrounds, I would translate them into a business impact. So if there is a technical risk, I try to quantify that risk or qualify, look at the impact, look at the probability, come up with a score, and then attach a cost value to that. And also, how does this technical risk impact the broader product quality? Now, it's all about communication. I ensure that the risk response plan is in place and to impact or mitigate the impact of some of these potential problems. So in my experience with digital transformation efforts over the past few years, I lay out the pros and cons of a particular technology choice, including cost, skill availability, and performance. And when it comes to performance, look at scalability, usability, the robustness, etc., in an understandable manner so that decisions can be taken. Now, just to give an example, and this example will come quite a bit, some of the questions further down the line. I was leading an AI/ML product development in one of my previous tenures at EY Global Delivery Services. And then we had to choose the right API, say SOAP and REST API for integration. In such situations, I always bring in the architects and experts who can actually do a proper comparison and then explain the pros and cons of each in a simpler manner, and then why one particular option was chosen, right? And this becomes very important because when you have a new, first of a kind implementations such as AI ML, I'm talking about a few years back, a lot of senior business stakeholders were mostly non-technical come into the picture, and then there's a lot of discussions and the need to acquire a lot of knowledge, and that is when this kind of communication from the right people like these architects and the experts is really important so that we deliver the very consistent message around the risk to these non-technical stakeholders. And so again, at the end of the day, while they would want to know why a particular integration option or why this particular protocol was chosen, these business stakeholders, like most end customers, they are interested in getting the most value from the product or the service. End users, typically, from my experience, they are not interested in technical risks. So I avoid communicating these directly unless there is a very specific ask. But again, moving back to the product owner, they would be interested. And again, when I communicate a technical risk, such as an issue with the architecture or inconsistent performance within a particular technology, I always include an action plan to fix it and then bring in experts who can weigh in on the discussions. So this has been my approach when it again comes to explaining these kind of risks that are technical in nature, complex in nature, to senior and non-technical stakeholders.
Okay, thank you, Arjit. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to our next question. The next question is, if you can give some example from your past project where you have to manage a difficult client situation due to delays or blockers or some sort of challenges, that will be great.
Yeah, thanks. Again, a very common situation and something which is like day to day in the life of a project or a program manager, managing multiple client priorities. So yeah, there are situations that we face that are impacted by risks, and some of these risks are quite external in nature. And the key is always proactive and detailed risk management. I can't stress this more. I do it much more often today as a consultant because blockers and delays, again, they are predictable, of course, unless they're an act of God. So it's important to do proper risk planning, analysis, and monitoring. And I emphasize this a lot, again, as I said, especially with a very diverse audience, uh, especially those that don't really belong to the tech sector. But having said that, in reality, unidentified issues, or I'm sorry, when I say unidentified situations or unidentified risks come across directly as an issue, that could go on to impact one of our project objectives, right? So several years back, I was I was part of a very large managed infrastructure contract for a leading tire manufacturer. In this contract, while my organization managed the technology backbone, there were other partners of the client that were accountable for all the applications and everything that sat on that technology backbone. So the work involved very close coordination between these two partners with the client at the center so that all the activities happened in a proper and a sequential manner as was required. So if the technology was delayed, they could not deploy the applications that impacted the business. And then during the implementation, I recall in one of the IT refresh programs, and that involved deploying a lot of new network hardware, switches and routers and the like at a particular site in the client. And the vendor was not able to provide them because of certain delays that happened, which was beyond the control. And it had to do with certain extreme weather conditions and that were sudden in nature. So while this vendor was very critical for us, we understood the fact that their supply chain was impacted and it threatened our timelines and also impacted our client. So having discussed the situation to the level of information that we could, I, along with some of my team members, had this communication with the client. We explained the situation to them, proposed certain alternate situations. We had other sites that we could progress the work in parallel. So we considered some of those opportunities as well, and provided him with certain high-level revised timelines based on what the vendor had said. The client did appreciate this because they also understand that these situations could happen, and they also did the necessary stakeholder engagement and management on their side. And while we had a critical situation scenario, and now with my organization's management closely monitoring the situation, uh, we had a daily or a very periodic engagement with the vendor and other teams needed to expedite a resolution. And eventually, we did address the issue. It took some time. But what was more important and appreciated was the fact that we were proactive. We knew it was an issue. We could quickly get on the ground. We could quickly engage the vendor on the one side and then look at alternatives. And at the end of the day, we helped address or rather resolve the issue by completing the delivery at a revised timeline. And in order so that at the end of the day, we were able to meet a deployment timeline, which was delayed, but we could still maintain the client's trust. So we were actually open and quite transparent, and the various individuals and teams came together to manage this critical situation. So this is one example I remember from my past experience a few years back.
Wonderful, Ajit. Thank you. I think we are good for today. So, friends, part 2 is coming soon. So, don't forget to subscribe. And if you have made it this far, there is no reason for you to not to hit that like button. Your support truly motivates us to keep creating more valuable sessions like this. So, we hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Swan Sharma signing off along with Arjit. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you, Arjit, one more time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.